The major reason that usually acts as a motivation to export is, in case of exporting, always it involves bulk sales. Uh, it means to say that we are not selling the products in something like hundreds or in thousands. Usually, we do it in some lakhs of units. So that makes a lot of sense to make sure that company could able to achieve something called as a bulk sales. So that is a one big thing that acts as a motivating factor. Second one is when we talk in terms of profitability, it is rather more profitable to export your products to other countries rather than marketing it in the only domestic markets. Because earlier, as what we discussed, there could be a lot of economic theories that are involved here. That can be in terms of both demand and supplies, the exchange rate differences, all these things might prioritize with respect to relatively more profitability, and that in turn will motivate the organization to go further with respect to categorizing or giving more importance towards the exports. And third point is insufficiency of domestic demand. If a product is not generating that much of demand in domestic market, it always provides ample opportunity for the organization to look out for other alternatives. So other alternatives might always work like blessing in disguise with respect to inculcating something like exports. Say for example, India grows coffee in abundance, even paddy and sugarcane also, but uh, we cannot say that we are not able to feed that much to the domestic market. But the things which are placing as a excess thing always would be considered to be exported to other countries rather than lying here unattended. So that is also one of the important aspect while contradicting with respect to domestic demand. Then next thing is reducing business risk. Since we are exporting, the risk factor will also remain as less as possible, because our domestic market is not getting that much burdened as what in contrast with export markets. And with respect to legal restrictions, these are the other things which you should be considering by looking at the legalities that is offering in the other nations. Say for example, in domestic market, the legal aspects are very much lenient when we compare in terms of international legalities. So the restrictions will be pretty much on the higher side, because uh, the firm should able to comply with all the what you call as policies and procedures that is being put across to satisfy their export obligations. And apart from that, we should also try to look at how much commitment does a firm needs to involve here. Always, when we talk in terms of exports, involvement will be very less, and we have something called as temporary involvement, continued involvement, as well as global involvement. So this usually varies from one company to another company based on their brand equity, their preferences in the global markets. So, for example, a company like Mercedes-Benz, for that company, all these 4 points might not have that much of importance. But for a company like Mahindra and Tata, it makes a lot of sense to show more commitment towards feeding the international market, because Mercedes is always there in the market for last 100 to 200 years. So for them, this will be like a cakewalk. But for a company like Tata and Mahindra, which are putting small baby steps into international markets, so for them, all this four commitment makes a lot of difference when we compare in terms of a big company like Mercedes-Benz. And unlike this, we should also look across to something like world trade and India's foreign trade overview. We can see that in the earlier 1990s, Indian economy has witnessed a lot of dramatic policy changes, a lot of economic reforms, and the company started uh, closing down their conservative approach with respect to having trade relations with other nations, and the economy started to open up, and the companies from different nations started their operations in India, and it in turn helped the country to improvise their economic growth, and all these factors always contributed with respect to give a generation of more employability for the local talents, and even the domestic company will also take a very larger step to make sure that their products are covering with the global standards, because they are not competing with any other domestic companies, but they are competing with international companies. So that will be something like a warning bell for those companies to have that sort of economic fear within themselves. And the idea behind all this new economic model was popularly known as LPG, that is liberalization, privatization, and globalization, which was a major boosting for the Indian economy, where all the trade barriers were taken off, and we had very good entry policies for foreign companies to come and do their business in India, and even it gave ample opportunity even for the Indian companies to go and operate across the globe, and imports started to come down and exports started to increase gradually. All these things are basically different sort of economic contributors, which usually helps the country to grow to the next level. And apart from that, we should also give rise for something like how all these small steps will take us to the next big steps with respect to achieving something called as a fastest growing economies in the world. And even in case of industrial policies of 1991 also made a very greater impact, where it had opened up for the global markets, where we had very big foreign companies coming to India and collaborating with our local companies. Say for example, even in our Karnataka we have a very good collaboration company called as Toyota Kirloskar, where Toyota collaborating with Kirloskar, and that in turn has brought a lot of laurels to the economic condition of the Karnataka. And apart from that, it was just a small example. In that case, you have got hundreds of examples across the different borders of India, where we can witness lot of good collaboration going on, and India could able to get good technology from the globe, and that in turn will help to generate more employability for the people, and even the people of India could get an opportunity to experience the global brands which are there in the international market. So all these things in turn will have so many economic factions that are attached with each other, and people started to give more importance for branded products. And you can see nowadays people are gaining lot of momentum with respect to purchasing of imported cars and bikes, which in the earlier cases was termed as where it is totally not reachable sort of a thing. But due to opening up of this industrial policies and all, even the one of the top rated global brands have become totally reachable even for the poorer Indian consumers. This is how usually the economics will open up, and it usually helps the countries to increase their global economic capabilities. And if we look at India's foreign trade gradually, in the engineering goods usually contributes to around 21.23%, followed by petroleum products, which has got a percentage of about 31.76, then followed by the gems and jewelries, which contributes to around 23.95%, wherein which we can say that India is one of the highest gold importing company across the globe. And also in case of organic and inorganic chemicals, that also contributes to the major chunk with respect to 39.9%, where most of our pharmaceutical companies are dependent on these sort of foreign trades. And a fourth one is our drugs and pharmaceuticals, where so many life-saving drugs are exported by the Indian companies to the other nations, and some of the highly sophisticated pharmaceutical drugs are imported to India, which are considered as a life-saving drugs. So all these things are something like mixing up or matching one thing with the other. If India imports petroleum product, but it in turn sends some of the food consumables to the other nations like rice, sugarcane, or other products, which could easily able to minimize the dependency of other countries.